Europe to follow in the footsteps of China and break away from American dependence. Hello everybody, my name is Toby. Welcome back to the channel. This, of course, is Toby's Takeaway. What an incredible day, what an incredible age to be alive. I've just seen footage of the press conference, I guess, the talk, the chat, the argument between President Zelensky of Ukraine, President Trump of the USA, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President. In fact, I think I've got J.D. Vance's book behind me in one of my bookshelves. When I read it for the first time, I thought it was a pretty good book. Now, I'm not so sure. Yeah, incredible, really. And why am I, somebody who primarily talks about China, a sinophile, a sinologist, I believe that's a word, talking about political events, things going on, perhaps nothing to do with China? Well, two reasons. First of all, something incredible happened yesterday and I really wanted to get off my chest. And second of all, I believe there is a connection with China, and I'll get to that later on. So do keep watching till the end, please, because I do think there is a connection with China. First of all, what do I mean when I talk about getting things off my chest? I don't know how I felt when I finished watching that press conference, that argument, let's be honest, that argument in the Oval Office. Upset, perhaps even angry, but I suppose overall disappointed. Why would I say disappointed? Well, for someone that certainly for most of my life, perhaps my entire life, America seemingly has been a beacon of democracy, of freedom, but certainly somewhere that seemed to uphold, moral values. And the way, in my opinion at least, the way President Zelensky was treated in that Oval Office was horrible. People talk a lot about respect these days, that you deserve respect, that you're disrespected, and a lot of it's sort of nonsense. But that was a form of disrespect. That really was horrible, the way they treat him. Some of the questions, I can't believe some of those journalists have got a journalist license, if such a thing exists in America. Some of the questions, we're asking him to wear a suit. Why doesn't he wear a suit? I mean, it's ridiculous. The man is leading a country at war. He's got time to wear a suit. And it's symbolic of what his country's going through. That's obviously why he's not wearing a suit. I mean, it makes no sense. A lovely tailored suit to go to Oval Office while people are dying. It's a ridiculous question. And so I found the whole thing horrible, but it brings me back to sort of the moral values of a country and of people in general. And I should say this, people who've watched my videos will know I'm a big fan of China, but also I'm a really big fan of America. I'm a big fan of people in general. Why wouldn't I be? And there are institutions, the United Nations, for example, years gone by, and other big institutions that America was at the forefront of pushing, and bringing into being. And they did that, I thought, at the time, and perhaps they did at the time, and maybe you'll have a different opinion, to set, the world order on an equal footing, whereby people couldn't willy-nilly, that's a funny phrase, invade other countries. And what's really disappointing is that through these negotiations with a leader of a country that has been invaded, I think that's really important. A country that's been invaded. One accusation is that it was Ukraine's fault, that they declared war. They were invaded. And the other point is this, that somehow $500 billion worth of minerals, mineral deposits in Ukraine must be given up to America in order to secure a defensive package, in order to secure continued support. What happened to the morals of America? That's horrible, isn't it? That's horrible. What's the difference, really? It's another form of invasion. It's an economic invasion. That's really horrible. I hope that's not true. Tell me it's not true, somebody. And now, with all that going on, to have an argument, to basically pal up to Vladimir Putin, the president, the elected president of Russia, to pal up with him in this sort of new world order, whereby somehow Eastern Europe and Ukraine, that can be the influence of Russia. I find that really, really horrible. I find that really, really horrible. Um, anyway, so how is it all? First of all, I'm really disappointed, and I think morally, what's going on in America right now, especially with regards to Ukraine, we can talk about other areas of the world, and even we can talk about what's happening within America, with people losing their jobs literally overnight, is really quite horrible. Now, me, I'm not American. I don't live in America. I've visited America, but I don't live there. What right do I have to talk about it? Well, not much, but I think as anybody, as a citizen of the world, I can give my opinion, whether you like it or not, or listen to it or not. It's up to you. As I said, I've got lots of many great American friends. I like America a lot, but what's going on there right now doesn't seem to tally up with what I consider to be American values. Something strange is going on there, and I'm sure there are many Americans, both in America and outside America, who are really, really horrified at what happened yesterday in the Oval Office, and potentially what's going to happen in the future with America. Okay, so let's bring it back to China. Of course, most of my videos are about China or based here in China. So how does this whole situation with Zelensky, with Ukraine, with what happened in the Oval Office, how is that China related? Well, let me tell you a story about 2022 when America imposed export bans on types of microchips, microprocessors, semiconductors. Okay, so that was a ban for China. So basically telling some American companies that certain technologies, certain microprocessors couldn't be, would not be allowed to be exported to China. And they did that. Well, they must have had their own reasons, but I guess the reason was they wanted to stop the technological advance of China. And subsequently, there have been other bans, either for China as a country as a whole or for certain companies. I think everyone's aware of that. The most famous case, but certainly not the only case, was the case of Huawei, a technology company, Chinese based. They make phones, but they also do a lot of things, and of course they had bans imposed on them. And what have they done? Well, through years of hardship, and honestly you could see that there was hardship, certainly 2022, 2023, but Huawei, at least within China, seemingly have come out of the other side. They've been forced to do their own research, their own R&D, and they've got their own chips, and they're using other chips, and they're not American dependent anymore, and they seem to have come out the other side. Of course, DeepSeek, a great success recently, and although my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is, although they have used, I think it's still NVIDIA, some stuff from NVIDIA, the very high level stuff they haven't been able to use, and still they've made a great product, if you can call it a product, AI. So how does that relate to what's happening with Ukraine and potentially European dependence on America? Well, this is my take. And it could happen, might happen. I don't know if it should or would, but here is what could happen. So what America is proposing, threatening right now, is this, that they would potentially, if no deal is made, or a deal that, President Trump doesn't like, if no deal is made, then they will pull American weaponry, American weapon systems out of Ukraine, basically out of Europe. That's what they're threatening. And without those American weapon systems, whether they be anti-missile, ballistic, whatever it be, and of course the electronic technologies that go with that, then it's highly likely that Russia will be able to advance further into Ukraine, resulting potentially in a complete loss of Ukrainian territory for the Ukrainian people and a complete victory for Russia. So really, really huge consequences if America pull out their weaponry, no longer supply the weapons. What we've seen in this situation is this. It's been a realization, I think probably everybody knew this, but it's really been thrown in the face of Europeans, including Ukrainians, is this. The Europeans do not manufacture or have enough of their own weaponry, weapon systems to combat potentially Russia and or any other aggressors. There's a complete reliance on American systems. And so if America withdraw that assistance, those systems, then Ukraine and potentially Europe are almost defensive, almost without a defense or certain type of defenses. Now, how does that relate to China? Well, what have I just said about China getting through the bans with the microprocessors, the microchips, and the semiconductors? Well, I foresee potentially, if this is to happen, that in 2 years' time, or however long it takes for European nations to produce, to research and develop and then manufacture their own weapon systems, what if they are forced to do that? then they will have to do that. And if they do that, then they will no longer be reliant on American weapon systems. Potentially good for Europe, not in the short term, but potentially for long term. And I don't think, and forgive me, perhaps I don't have a complete understanding of the American war system, but surely bad for America in the long term as well. I mean, America makes money out of war. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows America makes money out of war. When America is involved in wars, they sell the weapons that are used in the wars. How do they make money out of wars? Well, it's really quite simple if you think about it. Either the foreign nations buy the weapons directly from American companies, that's bringing money into America from abroad, and or America finances these wars either through direct grants or through loans. That is taxpayers' money that is then given. Cash is never really given or hardly ever given to these other nations, and then those other nations are forced. They have to use that money that's come from the taxpayers that goes back into American private companies that sell the weapons. So that's how it works. So basically taking American taxpayers' money from their pocket, sending it there, and then back around again. So it's just a circle. It's one way of taking money from this pot and putting it in the other pot. Really quite clever, isn't it? So that's why, one of the reasons I would suggest that America has been involved in a lot of wars for the last 50 years or so. But my point being, if you follow the China example, if European nations are forced to produce their own weapons, there'll be a short-term pain, and it may even result in the complete collapse of Ukraine. But in the long term, if they produce their own weapons, does that mean America is going to lose their vice grip on weapon systems, and people aren't going to buy their weapon systems anymore, and that perhaps they won't make any money from wars anymore, and perhaps then there won't be any more wars, at least from America. What do you guys think? Guys, I've rambled a lot today. Again, a little bit different from my normal videos, but I do think it's related to China. Wanted to get off my chest. Thank you very much for watching. Please do comment below what you think about this whole situation, whether you saw the video, the press conference with President Zelensky, President Trump and Vice President JD Vance, what you thought of that, what you thought about the interactions and the argument, how you thought President Zelensky was treated in the Oval Office, and what you think potentially a pulling away of weapon systems from European nations and from Ukraine will mean in the long term for both Ukraine, for Europe, and for America. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, 谢谢，再见，拜拜. Thanks, guys.